Welcome to another edition in the Jehovah's Witness series, where you can become an expert on the Jehovah's Witness and the scriptures that they use in their attempts at world domination. Learn how to stop the conversion tactics at the door and turn the table. In this episode, we will be discussing hell or soul sleep, Ezekiel 18:4. This is the same introduction from the other videos on hell, so if you've seen the other videos, then you may want to fast forward this video to the 2-minute mark. On page 214 of the Jehovah's Witness book, titled What Can the Bible Teach Us? From 2015, it says, "The Bible does not teach that a separate part of a person keeps on living after he dies." Also it says, Gehenna does not symbolize an invisible place where people who have died are tortured and burned forever. The Jehovah's Witnesses are taught that there is no external soul, and hell does not exist. Is this true? Is this what the Bible says? For nearly a decade, studying the Bible, logic, philosophy, learning from the top thinkers from around the world on the subject of religion and particularly Christianity, I'd like to share my thoughts with you today on the Jehovah's Witness and the doctrine of hell. One possible reason the Jehovah's Witness teach that there is no soul is to avoid negative PR blowback in regards to God's reputation. They may want to avoid the idea that God punishes evildoers. In their attempt to get rid of the doctrine of hell, they will do two things. One, argue that people do not have a soul, but rather, people are a soul. They will present a few verses, and then attempt to explain away all the verses that show people do contain a soul. And second, they will then attempt to explain away all the verses that mention eternal torment. Okay, let's get started. We will look at all their verses, and then see how they respond to the other verses. Ezekiel 18:4. Ezekiel 18:4 says the soul who sins will die. The Jehovah's Witness use this verse to argue that man does not have an immaterial nature. The Christian response to this is, first, the Christians do agree that the word soul, nephesh, is used here to refer to a living being or person, like it does in Genesis 2:7. But the word soul, nephesh, also refers to inner man, like it does in Genesis 35:18, where it says her soul was departing. And second, the Christians will say that the context of the passage in Ezekiel 18 has nothing to do with the existence of an immaterial nature. The context of the passage is addressing the false teaching of inherited guilt. That children are not guilty for their parents' sin. Each individual is guilty for their own sin. And since the nature of man's existence is not being discussed in this passage, it should not be used to draw conclusions about it. Thank you so much for watching. In Part 4, we'll be discussing Luke 23:43. Please share your Jehovah's Witness experience in the comments. Any questions or suggestions would be welcomed. And please check out our other videos on the Jehovah's Witness.